The date is March 29, 1987. The Pontiac Silverdome erupts as over 93,000 fans witness a clash of titans at WrestleMania III. Raymond Fernandez, known to the world as Hercules, emerges from the curtain, his imposing physique glistening under the arena lights, steel chains draped across his muscular frame like the ancient Greek hero whose name he bears. His opponent, Billy Jack Haynes, awaits in the ring, but what transpires next will cement Hercules as one of professional wrestling's most formidable forces. The match ends in a double countout, but the true brutality begins after the bell. Hercules, unleashing his notorious rage, wraps his chains around Haynes' throat, crimson streams painting a violent canvas across his opponent's face. The coup de grâce comes as Hercules locks in the dreaded full Nelson, Haynes' own finishing move, a final insult to injury that leaves the Portland strongman broken in the center of the ring. This moment, this display of raw power and calculated cruelty, epitomizes the golden era of the World Wrestling Federation, when larger-than-life characters like Hercules dominated the landscape of professional wrestling. Yet behind the chains, behind the Greek-inspired character and the superhuman strength, lay a story that would end far too soon. Raymond Fernandez, the man who brought Hercules to life, would leave this world at just 47 years old. Another tragic tale in an industry known for its premature farewells. But before we delve into that dark epilogue, we must first understand how a young Ray transformed himself into one of wrestling's most memorable powerhouses. Born in New York City on May 7, 1956, Raymond Constantine Fernandez Jr. faced early tragedy when his mother succumbed to cancer when he was just 6 years old. His father moved the family to Tampa, Florida, where Fernandez eventually excelled in high school amateur wrestling. Upon graduating in 1974, he embarked on a 3-year stint in the United States Air Force, laying the foundation for the discipline and resilience that would define his life. Trained by the legendary Hiro Matsuda, Ray Fernandez began his wrestling career in 1979, performing as Hercules Hernandez across the Florida and Texas territories. By 1982, he had joined the NWA Central States Territory, where he achieved significant success, capturing the Tag Team Championship twice with Dewey Robertson and holding the Central States television title for over 6 months. His rivalry with Harley Race, a former world champion, catapulted him into national prominence, particularly during a high-stakes feud involving Oliver Humperdinck's stable. After a dramatic steel cage stipulation match that saw Race injure Humperdinck, Hernandez's time in Central States came to an end. In early 1983, Fernandez toured Japan with All Japan Pro Wrestling before returning to America to join Jim Crockett Promotions, where he teamed with Jody Hamilton as the Masked Assassin 2. The duo competed at the inaugural Starrcade, defeating Rufus R. Jones and Bugsy McGraw. But Fernandez's tenure as an assassin ended when he was unmasked by Jimmy Valiant less than a year later. Transitioning to Bill Watts' Mid-South Wrestling, Fernandez adopted another masked persona as Mr. Wrestling 2, before eventually reverting to Hercules Hernandez and engaging in feuds with stars like Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Following success in Devastation Inc. and Championship Wrestling from Florida, where he became a double champion, his tenure ended controversially after a fight with Wahoo McDaniel, leading him to Puerto Rico's World Wrestling Council. But Vince McMahon's expanding World Wrestling Federation soon came calling, and Fernandez made his debut in November 1985, under the guidance of the iconic, classy Freddie Blassie, quickly stepping onto the national stage at WrestleMania II, where he faced Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in a hard-fought loss at the Los Angeles Sports Arena. Following Blassie's retirement and a storyline sale of his stable to Slick, Fernandez, now without his legendary manager, found himself struggling to gain momentum within the Federation's competitive midcard. In late 1986, Hercules' career took a pivotal turn when his contract was sold by Slick to the devious Bobby the Brain Heenan, marking a reinvention of his character. Shedding the Roman gladiator-inspired attire, he adopted a more fearsome persona, carrying a steel chain to the ring and showcasing a dramatically enhanced muscular physique. On November 29, 1986, at Saturday night's main event, Hercules faced heavyweight champion Hulk Hogan in the most significant match of his career. Though he impressively locked Hogan in his Hercules backbreaker torture rack, the champion's resilience prevailed, and Hercules was ultimately pinned in a battle that solidified his place among the Federation's elite performers. During this same time period, Hercules reignited his long-standing feud with Billy Jack Haynes, a rivalry that had spanned multiple promotions, including earlier encounters in the Federation. To intensify the animosity, Hercules adopted Haynes' signature full Nelson submission hold as his own finisher, with Heenan brazenly challenging Haynes to escape it. On Wrestling Challenge, the tension boiled over when Haynes, frustrated by Heenan's stalling, shoved the manager, only to be ambushed by Hercules with a clothesline and trapped in a vicious full Nelson. This explosive encounter set the stage for their earlier mentioned clash at WrestleMania III in front of a historic crowd of over 93,000 at the Pontiac Silverdome, where a double countout brawl spilled to the floor and culminated in a brutal post-match attack, with Hercules using his steel chain to leave Haynes bloodied. The feud ultimately culminated weeks later in a savage chain match, where Hercules emerged victorious, securing his dominance in their bitter rivalry. In early 1988, during an episode of Superstars, Hercules confronted the Ultimate Warrior in a moment of raw power as they engaged in a dramatic tug-of-war over Hercules' steel chain, which snapped in the middle. While the commentators credited the Warrior with the feat, Jesse Ventura insisted it was the combined strength of both men, further stoking the rivalry. The tension culminated at WrestleMania IV, where their grudge match ended with Warrior escaping Hercules' full Nelson, reversing the momentum and pinning him in a controversial finish that highlighted both competitors' brute strength. In the fall of 1988, Bobby Heenan sold Hercules' contract to the $1 Million Man, who claimed to have purchased his own personal slave in a brazen display of arrogance. Outraged by the notion, Hercules rejected the transaction, declaring himself owned by no man and turning face in this heated feud. At Saturday night's main event, Hercules triumphed over the $1 Million Man's bodyguard Virgil in a symbolic battle for his freedom, though tensions remained high. The feud carried into Survivor Series, where Hercules' distraction led to the $1 Million Man's elimination, but not before his gloating cost him against world champion Randy Savage in a perfectly timed roll-up. Next up, Hercules engaged in a brief series of matches against Haku. Although he defeated Haku at WrestleMania V, his quest for the Federation King title remained unfulfilled, and his career stagnated. Reduced to a stepping stone for emerging heels like Earthquake and Curt Hennig, Hercules was easily overwhelmed, with Earthquake crushing him at WrestleMania VI. In the summer of 1990, Hercules embraced a heel turn, aligning with Paul Roma to form the formidable tag team Power and Glory, guided by the cunning Slick. Their rivalry with the Rockers reached its peak with a decisive victory at SummerSlam, and they even targeted the World Tag Team Championship held by the Hart Foundation. However, their momentum faltered at WrestleMania VII, where they were swiftly vanquished by the Legion of Doom in under a minute. After Roma's departure from the Federation, Hercules found himself relegated to a supporting role, losing to a slew of prominent talent such as Jim Neidhart, Big Boss Man, Sid Justice, and even Intercontinental Champion Bret Hart. While he endured a respectable 40-minute run in the 1991 Royal Rumble, his performance in 1992 was cut short in less than a minute. His final televised match, a crushing defeat to Sid Justice at Madison Square Garden, saw Hercules endure a swift powerbomb and a 3 count, only to defiantly no-sell the assault, dismissing the match and storming off to the locker room in frustration. After 7 years in the Federation, Fernandez transitioned to World Championship Wrestling, before making his way to New Japan Pro Wrestling as Hercules Hernandez, where he formed the Jurassic Powers with Scott Norton, winning the Tag Team Championship and competing in prominent international tournaments. Fernandez continued to wrestle in various promotions before retiring from the ring in 1999 after a global career spanning several independent circuits. Sadly, though, the relentless toll of the wrestling lifestyle would ultimately take its devastating course, as Fernandez tragically passed away in his sleep on March 6, 2004, at the age of 47, with heart disease listed as the likely cause, potentially exacerbated by years of steroid use. His premature death cast a shadow over his legacy, particularly as he left behind a wife, Debbie, and 7 children, further deepening the sorrow of his loss. Raymond Fernandez may have left us too soon, but Hercules, the character he brought to life with such conviction, lives on in the pantheon of professional wrestling's most memorable performers. In the end, like the mythological hero whose name he carried, Hercules' story is one of strength, triumph, and ultimately tragedy, a tale as timeless as wrestling itself. May he rest in peace,